Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf. It's the beginning of November, actually the second, so I'm a day late because at the beginning of each month I look at the new releases of that month and I pick a couple, 4 or 5, to present to you, the ones I find interesting. So that's what I will do today, a day late, as I said already. And as always, we start off with a debut novel, and this one is Catalina by Liska Jacobs. Liska Jacobs is an American writer. She's a Los Angeles native and she's written short fiction and essays before for the Millions, for the Los Angeles Review. She worked in a bookstore as an events manager, and Catalina now is her first novel and it will be published on November 7th. Catalina is about a young woman, Elsa Fischer, who works for the MoMA and is fired. She gets quite a substantial severance package, and she is determined to blow the severance package with her college friends in Los Angeles with booze and, vacation stuff. So Elsa goes to Los Angeles, meets up with her college friends who think she is just on vacation, and together they embark on a sailing trip to Catalina Island. And everything goes wrong from there. I thought, as you know, I'm interested in new authors, debut authors, and I thought the story sounded interesting because it felt like a mixture of crime and literary fiction with a young woman determined to hit rock bottom together with her friends. And I read the first couple of pages, I liked it, so I picked Catalina for this month's debut novel. My second pick for November in the category literary fiction, but not a debut, probably doesn't surprise you because it's Ellie Smith's Winter, which comes out today on the 2nd of November and is Ellie Smith's second book in her seasonal quartet books. Autumn was the first. Autumn was shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize. Unfortunately, it didn't win it, and I loved Autumn. I'll reviewed it and I will leave a link to the review down below if you're interested. As I said, it's a quartet, a seasonal quartet, so starting with autumn, winter, spring, summer. But from what I understood, it's not necessary per se that you read them in order. So you can start with winter if you want to, or read autumn before that, but it's not necessary. It's not an ongoing story. There's not much to be known from the blurb. I only know that Sophia Cleves is one of the main protagonists, and it's about the bleakness of winter and death and dying, and it sounds indeed bleak, but if you know Ellie Smith and if you loved autumn like I did, I'm expecting poetic language, something about art and reflections on life. But I might be wrong, but I'm really looking forward to it because I loved Autumn so much. So even though I can't really tell you much about the book, I included Winter in my recommendations for November releases. And the third book on my November TBR, to be released, as you know, not to be read, but of course to be read, but it's new releases, is historical fiction by an author also from Los Angeles, and that's Janet Fitch, The Revolution of Marina M. The book will be published on 7th of November, and as I already said, Janet Fitch is an American author born in Los Angeles, and you might have heard of her or maybe read her best-selling novel White Oleander, which was published almost 20 years ago, 1999, which was also made into a fantastic movie. And I really loved White Oleander. And for us fans of historical fiction, I thought her new book, The Revolution of Marina M, sounded interesting. The book is set in Russia in 1916, just on the eve of the revolution, and we follow a young woman born into a privileged privileged family, Marina Makarova, and she gets entangled in the revolution. She works. She marches with the workers. She falls in love with a poet, and from what I understood, it's a mixture between a coming of age of a young, very independent-minded woman, and a historical fiction, because the backdrop, of course, is the Russian Revolution. So if you are interested in the Russian Revolution at all, or if you love Janet Fitch, if you read White Oleander maybe, then this might a good pick for you. I have to say though, the book is a tome. It's over 800 pages, but in November, there's also the Readathon Tome Topple, organized by Sam from Thoughts on Tomes. And the Readathon will be 2 weeks in which she encourages people to try to read big books. So if you are thinking of participating in a Tome Topple, I will leave a link to Sam's announcement video down below. The Readathon starts on November 17th. So the book, Janet Fitch's book, will be published then. And maybe you're looking for, a tome to read during these 2 weeks of the Readathon. And then if you're interested in historical fiction, Janet Fitch's book might be the right pick. The next book on the list is Nonfiction, because not only did I promise that I would give more attention to nonfiction on my channel, but November is also Nonfiction November, in which we try to read more nonfiction. So a nonfiction book cannot be missing from the list. And this one will be published mid-November, 14th of November, so plenty of time still to read it during Nonfiction November, and it's Caroline Fraser's biography of Laura Ingalls Wilder called Prairie Fires. Now you probably all know who Laura Ingalls Wilder is. She's the author of Little House on the Prairie. But this is the first comprehensive historical biography of the author, who was born in 1867. I mean, not Caroline Fraser, obviously. She's a contemporary author, but Laura Ingalls Wilder. And from what I understood from the blurb, it really gives a comprehensive look into the life of this extraordinary woman, and also the history of the United States, the Depression, between the years, 1867 until she died in the 20th century. So I thought that sounded really interesting. And if you are a lover of nonfiction like I am, you might be interested in the biography of Laura Ingalls Wilder as well. The next book will also be released on the 14th of November, and that's a crime fiction, because crime fiction, of course, must also not be missing from the list, and that is P.D. James' Sleep No More, 6 Murderous Tales. Now, P.D. James doesn't need an introduction either, the grande dame of crime, who died 3 years ago, an English writer, and you probably have heard of her, or if you like crime, you probably have read her books. She's written over 20 books. But this is a collection of short stories, never been published before, 6 tales about murder, who done it, why done it. And if you're a lover of P.D. James, I think this collection probably can't be missing from your library. So P.D. James, Sleep No More, a short story collection that will be published on the 14th of November. And the last book, as always, is science fiction, because if you're following my channel for any length of time, you know how much I love science fiction. But this time it's an author that you probably know, but wouldn't think that she's writing science fiction, and that is Louise Erdrich and her book Future Home of the Living God, which will be published mid-November. Louise Erdrich, or Erdrich, but her last name is German, Erdrich, because her father is a German American and her mother is a French Ojibwe. So Erdrich, Louise Erdrich, born in 1955 in Minnesota, but she grew up in Dakota. She it identifies as a Native American, and she's considered one of the most important literary voices in Native American fiction. She has written countless books of novels, poetry, children's literature. You might have heard of, or read her last book, La Rose, or the Master Butcher's Singing Club. And she often, as I said, features either Native American characters in her books and or Native American culture. She's a really interesting author. I love her work. If you have never heard of her or never read her, she is certainly an author that I would urge you to try out. So her new book, The Future Home of the Living God, is a dystopian novel set in contemporary America, where evolution seems to go backwards because women give birth to infants, to children, to babies who seem to be from a earlier evolutionary state of the human race. And the main character, a young woman called Cedar Hawk Songmaker, she's a Native American from the same Ojibwe tribe as Louise Erdrich's mother is from. She's 4 months pregnant, and the story is about her and about this strange development for the human race, where all of a sudden evolution, as I said, seems to go backward. Now, the premise sounded really, really interesting. I love science fiction. I love Louise Erdrich. So I had to include this book on my list of November releases. So this was it for my list of new releases in the month of November. Whoa. That was the camera. I'm sorry. But if you are interested in new books, there are other booktubers, of course, who always discuss new releases. I will link 2 of them down below. The first is Eric from The Lonesome Readers. He made a video of new fiction in November. And the other is Steve Donahue. He always makes every month a video about new releases, ranging from biography, romance, science fiction, literary fiction. So for everybody is something. So if you want to know more new releases, although I have to say Eric's video and mine, we have some overlap, but I'm sure you find other interesting ideas. So go check them out if you want to hear about more new releases. So this was it for me for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments whether any of the books that I talked to you about are of interest to you, whether you plan on reading them maybe, and also let me know whether there are other new releases in November that you are especially excited about, and I will see you all soon in my next video. Bye bye.